say this is super intimidating for me to be up here with these three legendary music business journalists. But talking to Matt, this is probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met in music. We met maybe 20 years ago. When were we doing? Get your mic out. Yeah. We the Boston Music Awards. You're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I got a mic right here. Okay, that's good. Yeah, we were, at the time I was hosting that show, farmclub.com, which was on USA Network, which was a place where, there was rock, there was hip-hop, there was a little bit of everything. But it was the first place that bands like System of a Down and Godsmack were ever on television. And for me, it was a natural progression as things at MTV started to go more in a boy band direction. I got the offer and a chance to go and work and do Farm Club. So, yeah, I remember I was in town. I think Godsmack were working on a second record maybe, or around that time. But I would also go up there and do Boston Music Awards, right?
Right.
And something there was like a punk and metal fest over at Worcester Palladium. The town that Dennis Leary and those guys are from. So I was up there, and that's where we met the first time.
Yeah.
And we were talking there.
This is one of those guys that you've been in the business for like 50 years, 40 years. I don't want to make you too old. Still out in the clubs like all the time. I remember seeing like Ahmet Erdogan hanging out at night. I was like, these are my people. Like they really love music,
Oh yeah, that's the hardest thing about this pandemic has been just the problem with live music. The fact that there hasn't been as much. I mean, it was like I was having withdrawals for not going to shows. I mean, not being able to go out and see bands play. I was trying to be out at shows 3 to 4 nights a week and just go out and see rock bands. It's been tough for the musicians this whole incredible time. But we've done a lot of charity stuff, you know what I mean? Like during this period of time, we did things for Save Our Stages, a lot of live streams, and raised a bunch of money, which was cool. The most we could, but... So, are my... Hey guys, I'm just looking to see if Riki and Mark are here. I'm not sure, but I'm sure they'll be here.
Here we
Here's
go.
Mark.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. All right,
Riki
guys.
Rachtman, you know who he is.
Riki and Mark.
This crowd definitely knows who he is. Mark Goodman. Well, this is what I like to do. I like to keep it loose because this is really what music is about, right? It's about having these moments.
No, nobody told me. I don't know. I didn't know I was supposed to be here.
Well, we're supposed to keep it loose. He just told us.
We're keeping it loose. We're keeping it loose here. So these are three legendary music business journalists. Like I said, it's a little bit intimidating for me to be up here because I watch these guys at different levels on MTV. Still listen to them on Sirius XM. And Mark, I want to talk about this because I know you were a radio DJ before MTV. And all you guys have been involved in radio. What do you think the difference between a successful radio band is and one who is successful on MTV? Let's talk about that cultural shift because you were right there in the heart of it at the very beginning.
I think the great thing about MTV was that it just allowed bands that needed to be seen to be understood get seen. People needed another avenue in. So I think that was the best thing about it. But you're asking like a difference between a band that got famous on the radio or that made it through MTV?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
MTV had this other magical power, I think. I mean, these guys were responsible for really introducing bands that fucking blew up. I mean, that went crazier than ever that you would just get a hit on radio.
Right.
I mean, that's as close as I can get.
Well, image became a thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a visual component, but there's always been a visual component to music. There always has been. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm curious, Riki. I'll go with you because you had a club.
Yeah, like this whole thing is a little bit surreal because to this day, when somebody says MTV VJs, I think of these guys. Like I've never thought of myself as an MTV VJ.
Right.
And I didn't go. I mean, I honestly, my first time ever with a microphone or anything was on MTV. I didn't come from radio. I didn't come from television. I came from having like a really cool rock club in Hollywood called the Cat House.
Like boots
that
on the
was
ground.
my background. So when it's like, oh, they're having VJs. Oh, there must be an empty seat. They want me to sit up there too. But
Well, explain to these guys how you got that gig, because it's a cool story.
what, the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those who you know stories. Like, these guys probably all got their gigs from having talent. I got my gig because Axl Rose asked MTV if they wanted to bring me in for a VJ. And then Axl's like, hey, do you want to go try to be a VJ on MTV? I'm like, okay. He's like, do you want me to come to New York with you? I'm like, okay. So it was the first time I ever flew business class, and we stayed up in New York, and everybody knew, like, look, I got my job because Axl Rose helped me get my job. Okay. And when I see early episodes of Headbangers Ball, I'm the first to tell you, I was horrible. Like, if I was a kid, I would hate me. And after a while, I got more comfortable, and, now I'm working in radio. I am the only person on MTV, not on Sirius XM, though. But now...
Our bad, man. Sorry. It's our bad, for sure.
But it's, now I look at all of this stuff, and it's just so cool. It's like, wow, I was a part of MTV. And although we long for that time, I feel so honored to, be up here with, like, real VJs and to be part of that family, because it was cool. And I know for a fact, if you liked hard rock or heavy metal, I had the #1 greatest job in the world. So everybody hated me and could do better. But it was awesome.
Dude, I'll tell you something. There is another VJ who got his gig because he was recommended by someone already famous. JJ Jackson was recommended for this job by Brian May from Queen. Yeah. JJ was a huge Queen fan. He was friends with Freddie. He was friends with Brian. And Brian called up the president, Bob Pittman. You should think about this guy. But they couldn't find him. They couldn't find JJ Jackson. They went to radio stations all over the country looking for him, and ultimately found the man. Good job, though. Yeah, I agree with you. Best job in the fucking world.
Absolutely.
Right?
It was certainly the best job in the world. I mean, it was incredible. Coming from a background of radio and DJing in rock clubs for quite a few years, because of the market that I grew up in, which is between New York and Philly. Now, Mark was in Philly radio, but it was really hard at that point to break in because, the closest market to me was New York City. And people that were in New York City on the radio, they didn't want to leave their gigs. It was people didn't come and go. When they got there, they wanted to stay.
That's right.
So I, started at a New Jersey radio rock station on the Jersey Shore, a rock alternative station that was a hybrid of rock and alternative music, and it was, and that's how eventually, by driving through snowstorms and doing all the shifts nobody wanted, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't want to work New Year's Eve? I'll do it, And I did break down on the highway before cell phones with a can of gas in a snowstorm, like 3 feet of snow, and walked 4 miles in sneakers and like a denim jacket. And I will regret that forever. But I'm just grateful. I think it doesn't matter how you got there. I think the great thing is it's what you did when you got there. That's why Riki was so great, and Mark was so great.
When did you take over 120? Who was the host before you?
Dave Kendall, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
Why are you asking me?
No, I was asking.
Well, it's a really interesting thing because I started filling in there in '93. But the oddest thing is, the first times I appeared on the channel, Dave Kendall was interviewing me on the street outside a show, and I was pretty hammered, but he was like interviewing people outside like a Robin Hitchcock show. And then also, oddly enough, I'm in for like 30 seconds the first season of Real World by accident because the guy who was in a band called Andre used to come hear me spin at this nightclub, this rock club. And he goes, hey man, I have a band and I'm on this new TV show called Real World. Is it cool if we come with our cameras down to the radio station and like you interview us? I'm like, Yeah, no problem, man. So, of course, I forgot about it, and I had like a stained shirt on that day. I didn't shave. I looked like absolute shit, and I'd been probably getting hammered the night before. And that's the first thing people saw of me was in the radio station with him.
And that's why we hired you.
Yeah. But no, I got to be honest and say, in 93, I filled in for the first time. What happened was Dave Kendall was... at the time, I either left or was let go, whatever it was, and I was very naive. I mean, I was working at a radio station. You know, I would watch you guys. I'd watched you. I loved watching Riki. So I loved the channel. So I just happened to get a phone call from the guys at MTV who work in the music department, where I ended up working. I ended up becoming a part of the music department, which is programming the videos and picking the videos, which was just a great thing to do because I had been doing that in radio. I worked my way up to program director and music director on that station on the Jersey Shore. But anyway, so I made this phone call because I saw that Dave Kendall was leaving. It was in a music trade. And I just went, hey, Kurt, this guy, Kurt Steffen, who programmed 120, I said, hey, man, what happened to Dave Kendall? And he goes, oh, I think he got blown out. I go, I'm sorry to hear that. I go, maybe you should have somebody on there, too, that, like, you can do some good interviews with bands that is really into music. And he goes to me, I'll see if they think you're in the demo, and I'll call you back in a week. And that's the joke, that see if you're still in the demo, because then I ended up on there for quite a few years. But I filled in first in 93. I did an audition. Riki's talking about when he went there, it was the first time he held a microphone. I looked like a deer in headlights at my audition. I went there, I'd never done TV before. I was all cottonmouth. I, again, being the worst dresser in the world, I showed up with a T-shirt with a giant rip in it for my audition. This is not a lie. And
then kids all over the country started wearing T-shirts with rips in them.
They were $140.
Yeah, and shaving their heads.
They were $140, exactly.
So, but I did that in 93, but I didn't take over the show permanently till 95. I got hired to be in the music department, and I thought I left the radio station I was on, and I literally thought I was never going to be on the radio or television ever again. I had already decided that I go, look, it's cool. You're going to work behind the scenes. You have a daughter. You're raising a daughter. You had that one time on TV. That's cool. You're going to work behind the scenes now, so you can't work on the radio anymore. And I was okay with that, which was a bit of a bummer. And then a few months later, they go, hey, you were pretty good that time. We're going to give you 3 weeks and see how it goes. And then that night, I did an interview, and they said, the show is yours. So the first time. So, and the rest is history. But, it's watching.
How many people were turned on to a band by 120 minutes?
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
How about Headbangers?
Yeah.
That's your crowd.
That's what I'm talking about.
Both great shows.
So, and Riki, you were a kind of a stand-in at first too, before it was permanent. Is that right?
I was a what?
You were temporary before it was permanent.
Well, what they would do is, I owned clubs back then, and one of my clubs, Bordello, they had me be the guy, the LA reporter, with Adam Curry being the host of Headbangers Ball. So Adam would say, like, and now we go to our man in the streets in Hollywood, Riki Rachtman. And you could sort of tell that Adam's sort of kind of like, oh, and now it's Riki Rachtman.
No. That was just the way Adam talked.
But I do want to say a thing. I've only met Adam a couple times, and he was always like a really nice guy, and I think he kind of created the podcast or something like that.
He's the podfather.
So he's doing really good. But he was like a VJ. Kind of real funny little side note. My roommate at the time sang in a band called Faster Pussycat, and Tammy was a guest on Headbangers Ball, and Tammy goes, hey, I want to give a shout out to my roommate Riki. Probably digs hearing his name on MTV. And that was like me just watching Headbangers Ball while Tammy was on it. But I was like the man to do like the reports while Adam was still hosting the show. And then eventually they brought me into New York to audition. I was horrible. And then they gave me the job, and I'm still horrible for a little bit, but got a little bit better. And it was sort of like that.
Well, something that I think that all three of you guys share is that you really were all the men on the street. Now, Mark, there's a famous video of you and David Bowie that people see when David Bowie's talking about why are you not playing black music? That's what it's about. But something I think people miss is that you talk about actually answering phone calls from listeners and being connected like that. Now, Riki's there, Matt is there, connected in a different way. Let's talk about that connection. Was it difficult to keep that connection with listeners when you were on a nationally broadcast show? I mean,
I feel like that's something that MTV had to fight. I mean, if people say we went up against radio to begin with, the advantage of radio is that radio was always local at that time, and we weren't. So we did everything we could to try and, fake things like that would make us feel local,
Yeah.
So.
Talk about like the push and the pull though, because sometimes like Matt is like a guy who's on the street, right? He knows what's happening and that drives maybe radio, but it feels like if something were on MTV, that was also driving radio. But
there's no question that, especially in the '80s, and I would venture to say probably into the '90s, that MTV drove what radio added. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Mark.
But in a good way. I mean, people were pitting radio against MTV in the beginning, and, behind the scenes, we were. But ultimately, radio understood how to work with MTV and wound up benefiting from it in that way by adding the right records and, getting visibility through MTV. Don't you think?
Yeah, exactly, because, bands like Metallica, there were programmers that were resistant to Metallica until they weren't playing Master of Puppets or anything off Kill 'Em All or Rise of Lightning. But when the One video came out, it forced radio to recognize Metallica as a new force. And it did that with a lot of things. The same thing would be true with Headbangers Ball and with Guns N' Roses. And the thing is that it was MTV that really drove those artists and pushed them to a new level and over the top. We could see it happening, And even though I came into the music department in the 90s, it was the same thing with bands like Soundgarden, who've been around for a while, but all of a sudden we're getting the exposure. I'm just using them as an example, or Alice in Chains. But it was one of those situations where, MTV, I always said that it was the biggest top 40 station in the world. And what I meant by that was, it's like, because its reach was so huge. And I don't just mean top 40, I meant hip-hop, I meant MTV Raps, Headbangers Ball, 120 Minutes, Alt Nation, whatever is being played there, because MTV at that period of time was driving pop culture and rock culture in such an incredibly big way. It was very, very influential.
There was all different kinds of stuff being played. That's why it was sort of top 40-ish.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Top 40 is like, great song is great song, play it.
Yeah, that's the way top 40 used to be, right? Yeah.
Right.
when they used to play some guitars. Right? Exactly.
Yeah, where are the guitars, man? The guitars are in fucking Nashville, man. That's where the guitars are.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So if somebody wasn't marketable via video, did they still have a chance during that time, do you think, as being a musician?
Well, of course, because they're still touring, and they're still radio. But the reason that within a year after us launching, every band that was signed, that got a record deal, made a video clause, cash set aside to do one video or two videos, whatever it was,
right,
because it was that important. And I mean, it's a no-brainer. For God's sake, you're going to do 3.5 minutes that's going to be a commercial for your band that will be played, if you're lucky, 8 times a day.
Right.
So that's what the film companies realized, that's for sure.
Mark, we were joking around about being just kind of loose up here on stage, and I remember watching those early days of MTV. I felt it was pretty loose. I remember giving away like Bon Jovi's house. Do you remember that promotion?
We gave away his house?
The house he grew up in.
You remember that? I have no memory of that.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet, but it was definitely done. Yeah.
So
I know about the Pink House. That I know.
Like John Cougar?
John Mellencamp?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so that sounds like a story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. We gave away the house, and the big promo was Mellencamp on the air going, yeah, we're going to give you this house. It's in Bloomington, Indiana. You get it for free. And, and then you'll come out and we'll paint the mother pink. That was the big line. we did it. We gave away the house, and then we realized, fuck, it's on a toxic landfill. Swear to God. So we quickly. You never saw that on music news, though. That was never.
So it seemed like that was kind of the attitude, though. Like, we'll figure it out as we go, because you guys were really. It was a brand new thing at the time to have like this youth-oriented network. It's almost like youth-oriented culture from rock and roll, but in a different level.
In the really early days, we were just trying to figure out what we could do that would be larger than life. So give away a house.
Yeah.
Let somebody be a roadie with Van Halen. Like that just crazy shit that you could never imagine happening to yourself. That was the kind of stuff that we...
All right, I want to dig into some more of these stories. Ricky, I know you got to have something like that.
I forgot everything that happened to me
Hey, Ricky, I meant to ask you, Class Action Park, did you see your footage in that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, people asked me quite a bit. They were like, what was your favorite episode of Headbangers Ball? And some of them are, the Nirvana episode always comes back to haunt me. But without a doubt, the most asked about episode of Headbangers Ball also was the most fun episode of Headbangers Ball, and that was with Alice in Chains at the water park, which ended up getting shown again in the movie Class Action Park. Yeah. Now, when we went to, which if you don't know, it's a documentary that's definitely worth watching about a water park that like injured people and maybe killed people. It was dangerous. And they let myself and Alice in Chains go to the water park and do whatever we want. And I remember sitting on a chairlift with Jerry Cantrell as we're going up, and there was a water slide that did a loop, and it was closed. And I remember sitting there and saying, isn't a water slide that does a loop dangerous? I go,
really bad.
Well, it's closed now because somebody went up halfway and fell down and broke their nose. But we did it, and we did all this crazy stuff. And it wasn't like, especially with Headbangers Ball, because I kind of did whatever I wanted to do. And then you put me with a bunch of metal bands, you can't really script stuff out because everybody's going to do whatever the hell they want. So if Alice in Chains and myself are taking over a water park, we're going to take over a water park. If you're going to let me loose in Texas with Pantera, we're going to go crazy. And the beauty is that because, I'm just some bum from Hollywood, and even the bands that sold a lot of records, we were just like, whatever. And they're going, okay, you're going to go play basketball with Anthrax at Boston Garden, or you're going to go kick a football where the Dallas Cowboys played. You're going to go to the Castle Neuschwanstein with Danzig. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, I get to do the most incredible things with these bands that are also getting to do like pretty cool, skydiving with Dave Mustaine, whatever it is. And it was just kind of like...
Did that happen?
What?
Skydiving with Dave Mustaine?
A lot of times. I didn't let him pack my chute. If you saw the show, you know why. But afterwards, Dave and I started skydiving more regularly. But we would do, and I remember them saying, like, Ricky, would you go skydiving with Dave Mustaine? I go, okay. And then we would do it, and we would just do all this crazy stuff. And I mean, again, it's talking about having the greatest job. MTV would do contests that were, I don't want to say youth energized, but it was kind of like, let's see if we can do this. And then because MTV is so huge, they got the budget. They're like, holy crap, we're going to actually get to do this. So there was some pretty amazing, I mean, I got to go all over the world because of MTV, so it was incredible.
There were those, like Ricky's talking about, those promotions, they don't, obviously, once things started to, go in a different way with the record companies, they stopped doing things like that. But one of those promotions was like the one we did with Metallica we called it the Mother Load. And it was basically sending 3 tractor trailers out with a Jeep inside of it, gold records, equipment, all of this other stuff. And literally, I remember me and this VJ John Sensio, we were on in San Francisco, like on an abandoned like Navy airstrip or something, and the 3 tractor trailers were there, and this trivia had built up. You had to know Metallica trivia for a while, and then they picked 3 people, and they sent them out to 3 different locations and just tracked these 3 tractor trailers. But once they knew that the winner was going to be the one in Aberdeen, Washington, I flew up there, and that was the town that Kurt Cobain was actually lived in and was born there. But it was such a small town. It was a little logging town, and the only thing there was a Walmart. When I got there, and a diner, the sheriff asked me, he goes, "Hey, man, you want Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic mugshots? I got copies of them for you." So I said, "Sure, man, I'll take them." Yeah, so I did. So they're somewhere in storage. But anyway, because when they were like, pimply-faced teenagers, and they got in trouble for like drawing Scooby-Doo having sex with Shaggy on some wall and got busted for it. And so, literally, I met Metallica. I was there, but I had to hide in my hotel room because there wasn't much going on in the town of Aberdeen, but this kid won the contest. So I met Metallica about 20 minutes outside of the town and jumped in, and they flew in and drove up. We jumped in the back of a tractor trailer. We tried to shoot some stuff with flashlights. It didn't really come out. But we pulled up into this guy's house and opened the back of the thing, and then I jumped out of there with the 4 guys in Metallica. And then you saw the other people that didn't get it. They were crying because they wanted really... Meanwhile, they got a Jeep and like 500 other things, but they were such big Metallica fans. But it was a great time. Like Ricky's saying, those promotions were just unbelievable. We ended up playing basketball with the kids that won. Metallica played in a little bar and let the kid come up and sing a song from Kill 'Em All with them. The bar was the size less than where those curtains are. It was promotions like that were just so cool, and those were some of the really magical things that we got to do, but that were also great for viewers. I mean, they were really important for people that were fans, of the channel.
You felt connected to it, like you could win it, like it was a possibility. I don't know if people feel that way today when they watch MTV. It seems like there's a disconnection.
Wait, are people watching MTV today?
Yeah.
Not
Anybody
from
watching
music.
MTV?
Not from music. Well,
Ridiculousness Marathon 736.
Right. Do they have any other
all
fucking
it is.
shows? Ridiculousness. What? Every time I turn it on, that's on.
Well, Ricky had posted because it's true. Yeah.
This was the one thing.
I'm serious.
Is this? Yes, I was the host of Headbangers Ball, and that ruled. But MTV before me, when Mark was on it, and everybody, MTV was more than just breaking videos. It really, truly did define a culture. Movies were never the same because of MTV. People that made music videos became some of the best movie directors and producers. And even though I liked punk rock or heavy metal, MTV was my fish aquarium at home, and it was always on because I would walk by and say, "Look, I don't know if I like that song, but wow, that Aha video is kind of interesting. It's groundbreaking, And the thing was, MTV was so important. Now, when I found out that it was the 40th anniversary recently, I said, "Look, you don't call me up, that's okay." But it's like, you're talking about the original 5, and you're talking about how important MTV is and was to an entire culture. I felt insulted that you wouldn't at least acknowledge that MTV, forget about Headbangers Ball, fine, but at least acknowledge that there was an MTV for 40 years. And then I posted something on social media, and I'm saying, I'm not saying this for selfish reasons. I'm saying because this is one of the most, it was almost one of the biggest things in our whole lives was MTV and the whole culture. And you acknowledge it by 40 straight hours of ridiculousness. And I put that, and then I saw that like Alan Hunter, who is another real VJ, he retweeted it. And I was like, I feel very disappointed, and it almost felt to me like a jab in the back for not at least acknowledging that it was MTV's 40th anniversary by at least having, maybe Mark and Martha and all those people. Of course, I'd like to be a part of it. But if they had all the people just to show, like, remember what MTV was, remember this. Of course, I found out later today there was a big party that Mark went to that I didn't know anything about. But that's besides the point. But the thing is,
They told me they texted you, man.
To not even acknowledge on the 40th anniversary that there was an MTV. Just take the programming from back then and put it on 24 hours. You don't even need to bring back the original VJs. Just give us something. Try to play the damn commercials, but you know what? I wouldn't be that
Preach,
upset.
brother, preach.
The Reverend Riki Rachtman. I wouldn't have been that upset if I had to sit through a day of watching a Cyndi Lauper and a Duran Duran and an ABC and a Michael Jackson video, even though I'd rather have Headbangers Ball on or 120 Minutes or even Yo MTV Raps. But just give me those damn videos just to acknowledge that something happened 40 years ago, you know?
Yeah. These people, woo, absolutely. These people in this room, they'll applaud and we're all with you. But the people who watch MTV now have no fucking idea, and they don't care.
And there's one thing that I also want to say.
Teen
and
Mom.
This is the most important thing. The truth of the matter is, if 5 million people were watching Headbangers Ball every Saturday night, Headbangers Ball still would have been on, okay? We strayed. Now, not very many people saw it. I did my own version of the Headbangers Ball called The Ball. This isn't a plug. These are all the people that saw it worldwide. This isn't a plug because I'm not doing it, but I did it as if I made Headbangers Ball. And people said, no, people aren't going to watch music videos right now because if I decide I want to see a video from insert artist here, I just go search it. But that's not true. I think that we'll put it on because, oh, look, I've never seen that video. There's I might be saying her name wrong, Olivia Rodriguez. She's like the biggest, Rodrigo, well, I'm old. She's like the biggest pop star, I think, right now. Well, I found where they were showing some music videos, and I saw this song that she was singing, and I just walked by and I go, okay, that's kind of a catchy pop song. But the thing is, here's music videos that might not be my genre, but I'm still going to watch it. I'd like to see it. You know, Matt is one of those people that I can't relate to that knows everything about music, you know.
I don't remember, isn't it?
I don't remember where my hotel room key is. But there's all these people, and the truth is, and I think the VJs and the people that worked for MTV, and I can't speak for them, but I think they really did love music. We loved music. And I just, like I said, I wish it was acknowledged, but I think that something could happen. You know, a lot of them are on Sirius and get to talk about music, and that's fun. But
I think what Riki's saying is true, that I think that one of the things that is still important that I think a lot of companies don't realize is there's still a need for curation. The idea that there's people would
curation
go,
by a human, not an algorithm.
Yes, exactly. There you go. I agree.
We're in a room filled of most of the people that are a little bit older. That there's nothing words that we hate more than the words influencer, right?
Yes.
Oh. How many views, clicks, likes, follows? Screw you.
Oh man, I'm with you on that. I am with you on that.
And by the way, get off my lawn.
Exactly.
So, I've got one question for each of you. I want to take some questions from the audience as well. You guys were radio guys. Riki, you were a club guy before going on MTV. How did your lives change personally? Matt was talking about being up in Washington, and people knew him. He was a celebrity by then. How did your life change? Let's start with you, Mark.
It was turned completely upside down. In a good way, but it was difficult. I know you talk about it in your book. I talk about it in my book. There's not many people who handle sudden fame well. And I know I didn't. I wrote about it in the book. There was, I wound up getting divorced, It's like I'm a local radio guy, and then all of a sudden, everywhere I go, people know me, So it's kind of crazy and intoxicating. And the upside of it is 40 years later, I'm still working because of it. 401k and a health plan, goddamn right.
And Riki, the club got more popular?
Yeah, I mean, and I've had lots of great jobs, but I'm always going to be that guy from Headbangers Ball. And for a couple years, I kind of was like, well, no, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. It's like, you're the dude from Headbangers Ball. Well, now I'm really honored to be that guy, and it's very flattering. But I'll never forget this. I was at the airport, and somebody said, Riki Rachtman. And I remember walking over thinking, what's somebody I know? And I was like, oh, hey, what's happening? He's like, oh, hey. Like he just said my name because he knew me from MTV. And it was that moment that I realized that my name, which was always my name, was like kind of like a product. And that people had an opinion like, I never picked a video for Headbangers Ball. And heavy metal and hard rock fans, as much as we love to see how we love everybody, that's a load of crap. They are so department, and if I'm not playing the heaviest or the poppiest, they hate me. They don't hate MTV, they hate me. So all of a sudden the name Riki Rachtman became something that would make some people really mad, and all of a sudden I'm walking around, it's like, Riki Rachtman is the actual name that it says on my driver's license, and now, but of course, if I'm going to go try to get some sort of job here, or, hell yes, I'm Riki Rachtman from MTV, so it helps on your resume, even though for about 4 years I was a car salesman, it didn't help, but, it helped.
I gotta just tell you quickly that Riki, it's so similar to what Riki said, because the first time I got recognized in New York City coming out of the MTV building, I literally thought it was somebody that knew me from like Central New Jersey, from DJing in nightclubs and being on the radio. Because they said, "Hey Matt, what's going on?" It was a couple, and I go, "I'm good." I go, "So how are things back in Brunswick? How's the Melody?" They go, "Melody? What's that?" "We're from Ohio." And it was like literally, I'm like, that was the moment I went, oh, wait a minute. Holy shit.
The big difference is like, "Dude, you're Riki Rachtman from Headbangers Ball, right?" He's like, "Dude, my mom loved you." Or it's almost like, "Now my grandma watch your show."
All right. Well, somebody's mom out there want to ask Riki a question. We're going to take questions from the audience. Where's a mic? We got a mic bumping around. All right. Raise your hand. All right, we got one in the back. Yeah. Take it on back there. Yeah, that's actually how I knew Matt was Matt when I saw him before the panel. I was like, "Hey, you're that guy from MTV, and I'm interviewing you." But you do have a unique voice, though, so probably that was happening maybe when you were on the radio as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that go to me now like, "I recognize your voice, man. You lost a lot of weight." Because I did. I lost like 40 pounds, 30, 35, 40 pounds.
I took the 40 pounds.
Yeah, but you look good, though. That's the difference.
You guys look fantastic. All right, you got a
both
question?
look great.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and Riki kind of touched on this.
Right, Riki.
Sorry, guys. Riki kind of touched on this a little bit ago, but we're obviously all rock and rollers, heavy metal guys here, guys and gals. But would you argue that maybe people that grew up when MTV was, playing music videos, they ended up having a more diverse taste in music just because of the fact that we were watching, my generation, Nirvana, Soundgarden, but then you got Dr. Dre, you got SWV, like all this different, Mariah Carey, all that stuff that I probably would never would have listened to because I was listening to the hard rock station, but I've got an appreciation for all these different genres, and I think part of it just becomes from being exposed to it. Would you guys agree with that, or what is your thoughts?
100%. I think, absolutely. I think that was the thing that was good about MTV is, like I said earlier, it was kind of like the biggest top 40 station in the country, in the world, because, again, you got to experience many different genres. And I think that's a really healthy way of learning about music anyway. I think radio is way too segregated now, to be honest with you. I'm not talking about rock radio, but I'm talking about top 40 is just like one sound, where there isn't one format that just really plays everything. That's my beef with top 40 right now. It's like all sounds like the same trap beat or whatever. It's just for me, it's lazy programming. That's coming from a radio guy.
I've had people, honestly, almost every single day, somebody would come up and say, "Dude, you turned me on to Pantera," which I never picked a video on MTV. When they say, "You turned me on to Pantera," I always say, "Well, thank you, yeah." But, but it was like, and for a while I was just like, yeah. And then realized, wow, this show was really important to people. This is how they found out about Sepultura or Pantera or Black Label Society or Alice in Chains by watching Headbangers Ball. And I don't know if I even realized the importance of it back then, because that's how you found out about those bands. And, even watching...
But the fact that you
MTV,
didn't pick the bands, wouldn't you have played those bands?
not all of them.
Well, I understand that there
Not
was
all
some
of them.
controversy towards the end of the run of Headbangers.
Well, I do not. First of all, I'm not going to start because it'll go on and on if I start to talk about how I don't think Nirvana killed anything in rock and roll.
Fuck right.
But
of course not.
because it's just rock, you know. Okay, give me just 15 seconds on this, okay? If you think that your rock scene was killed by a Seattle scene, then your rock scene was weak. The reason that a certain rock genre isn't as popular is because it wasn't as loved by so many people. Now, to disregard any new music, you're missing so much good stuff. I love old music. I love new music. And why do you want, make up your minds. I like this band before they were big and they sold out. Oh, well, they got killed by do you want them to be big? Do you not want them to be big? Rock and roll is like, it's all out there, whether they're big or whether it's not big. And I don't think I answered the question he asked at all.
But that was beautiful. And I was just thinking, how do you feel about turning me on to Winger?
What?
Yeah.
Hey, man, Kip Winger is a fucking genius.
He's unbelievable. I agree. Yeah.
That
Red
guy
Beach,
is
all those guys.
unreal.
Yep. I mean, but it's like everybody's got their opinion, and it's got to be a tough position when everybody. Yeah. I thought you picked it. I'll be honest with you. When I was a kid watching.
No, I did not pick a Winger video.
Hey, man, I take credit for Duran Duran every damn day.
I love Duran Duran.
All right,
I personally liked heavier stuff than we played on the ball. Like everybody thought like that I was like really into a lot of the really like lolly bands, but it's not. I was kind of into more of the heavier stuff. That was my stuff, but
All right, we got about 6 minutes. We got some questions in the back. We're like Donahue. This is like the musical Donahue right up here.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to repeat it. We're going to repeat it for you. Come here. He's getting the mic.
I think Mark might have a story, but I just want to, maybe all three of you do. I just want to, David Lee Roth and cocaine.
They went together well.
Yeah.
Yes, I have done coke with David Lee Roth. Yeah. Is that the story? Are you talking about the US Festival discussion? Oh. Has anybody seen that on YouTube? Have you guys?
So there's a video of this.
There is a video that exists on YouTube. The Metal Day at the US Festival in 1983, Van Halen was the headliner that night. They had this massive compound backstage, and they supposedly got paid $1 million to play. And Dave swore that they spent all that money on this backstage area. I'm talking to him for MTV. We were covering the festival, and Dave had done coke. Come to find out, shocking. And Dave was drinking whiskey. I don't know. He was hammered. But when Dave gets hammered, he just gets insane and funny and nuts. And there was a moment where he was sort of referencing the fact that we both were circumcised, and I don't even know how that happened, but it is a fairly legendary conversation, if really unfocused and convoluted.
Keeping it loose. All right, so you had the question in the back.
My question is for Mark Goodman. MTV during the 80s, of course, for those who were there, it's one of those things, if you didn't watch it, you won't understand. I wanted to hear what you have to say about one of the MTV's big moments, which was the world premiere of Michael Jackson's Thriller video. And maybe
I don't believe I'm familiar with that one.
Maybe if you could say something about the build-up to that, because it was a big deal all across the country.
Those premieres used to be a huge deal all the time.
We started doing world premiere videos, and we would get exclusives, and this was before MTV started to have to actually pay for their programming. But the Thriller video, if people remember, we really did play it every fucking hour. I'm not exaggerating. Every hour.
And how long was it? It's like the full one is.
Well, it was like 14 minutes or something. Yeah, I mean, it was absurd. So much. We played it so much that I was late for the studio during that time. I had to take a cab to the studio for work every day, and I was late, and I ran out of my apartment, and I get into a cab, and I go, I'm going right downtown 33rd and 10th. I'm really late. Can you hurry? And the cab driver turns around, and he looks at me and goes, hey, Mark, don't fucking worry, man. They'll just play Thriller a couple more times. It's like, oh, okay, maybe we should back off a little bit.
All right, we got time for one more. We got a question right here. Where's the mic?
It's not so much a question as an acknowledgement. You were talking about the promotions you guys did, and you did one where you gave away a weekend, Halloween weekend with Motley Crue and Autograph in Chicago. And a dear friend of mine, Debbie McIntosh, was the winner, and I was one of the 25 friends that got to go. I'm lucky to be alive after that weekend. But I'm also
who hosted that one?
Alan Hunter.
Alan did?
Yes, yeah. I met Alan that weekend. And I'm very lucky to be alive after that weekend, and I'm on an MTV commercial. So I just want to say people really do win on MTV.
Wow, you remember.
Nice callback. All right, we got one more.
Yeah, so there's a question for Riki, and I know you pretty much carried the torch for hard rock and heavy metal. Most of us, our influences came from you, but I also know you came from a big, deep punk background. And I was just curious why MTV never latched onto that at all. I'm going to guess as you got more established, you probably tried to influence them a little more, but what happened there?
I mean, thank God it didn't. When I was into punk rock, it was the early days. I mean, I was a little kid, and I was going to see the early shows of Germs, Black Flag, TSOL, Adolescence, DI. I could go on and on and on. I didn't want that. I would hate it if that was ever on MTV. 120 Minutes did occasionally play some of that type of music. They did.
Yeah, we did.
But I was, and I know that it's so flattering to hear that I was carrying the torch for heavy, but I didn't want to be that guy. But I mean, I loved it. But because I do like all sorts of, I did an interview in Spin that people ripped me to shreds. I said, when I went to high school, I could tell you way more about Black Flag than Black Sabbath, which everybody ripped me to shreds about. But for me, I believe that music, I don't want that stuff on MTV. I wanted the stuff of my high school to be the punk rock that I didn't find out about it from a video. I found out about it because it was on a cassette, and after high school, we sat in the parking lot. I'm like, dude, check out this song from H and Orange. It's just so cool. Which was also the same way we found out about the Motley Crue leather records, was bypassing the cassettes and stuff like that. That was actually the band that sort of bridged the gap. The first video I ever saw, which is, it's important, the first video I ever saw on MTV was Livewire for Motley Crue. And I remember I was in this punk rock guy, and I saw the Motley Crue Livewire video, and I said, I don't know what the hell this is, but this is cool, And that was kind of, because a lot of the guys that we came from the metal scene also have our roots in punk rock as well. And now I still love both, but I truly do love all kinds of music. I love new wave. Nobody claims that anymore. I love new wave, man. Haircut 100, yeah. Woo!
All right, guys, we are out of time. These guys are going to be hanging out, though, on some level. So thank you, guys. It's fantastic to be here with you.
Thank you.